everyone, my name is Brittany. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to go over my May wrap up.
It's Brittany, bitch.
If you couldn't tell from the thumbnail, I read over 30 books in May. I have never read that many in a month in my life. Not only am I incredibly proud of myself, but it's actually helping me get towards my goal of 120 books this year earlier than I anticipated, because every fucking year I end up scrambling in December to try to reach my fucking 120 book goal, and it's a scramble. Like, I just want to ease into the end of the year, and I think that reading this many books in the middle of the year has really been helping me out. I will attest a lot of this to reading graphic novels, which I just happened to pick up a lot of at the library, and I got very inspired to make reading vlogs for them. And those kind of novels are obviously a lot faster and easier to read, so I can bump up my counts, but that was not actually my intention. I really was just interested in them. But two birds with one stone. So I'm gonna get into all the 33 books that I read. However, I will let you know that, of course, I don't rank them. They're not like worst to best. I don't rank them that way. I don't give any statistics. If you're ever wanting statistics, just let me know. I can definitely try my best to incorporate these into these videos, because I do like hearing what other people's months were like, but that seems like a lot of work. And already doing these wrap-ups is a lot of extra work for me this year, because these long videos take me so long to edit, just because, like, mentally it is a struggle. If it is a 5-minute video, I have no problem editing it and taking my time. But the minute that a video passes like the 8-minute mark, I sit on it for like a week. Anyway, my books are organized on my list of when I started them. So I may not have actually finished that book first, but I list them in the order that I start them, okay? So that's what we're starting off with. The first book that I started in the month of May was All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. And this was for my indie romance reading vlog that I'm gonna link above. I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars. This is a slow burn romance that takes place in Colorado between our main characters Aurora and Rhodes. So Aurora is kind of leaving her past behind and coming back to her hometown, where her mother actually disappeared like 20 years earlier on a trail, and they never found her body or found out what happened to her. And Rhodes agrees to let Aurora live in his like garage apartment, and they slowly fall in love. This was my first Mariana Zapata book, and I definitely am looking into reading some other books of hers. I really enjoyed this. This was a really fun time, and that was probably one of my favorite reading vlogs I've made almost all year, just because I actually enjoyed reading a 600-page book, and it kind of got me back into reading physically, because I do listen to a lot of audiobooks and I do read a lot on ebook. So reading a book physically just kind of gave me like those reading feels I haven't had in a long time. And I think that's also why I'm a little nostalgic for this one. The next up was The Prince and the Dressmaker, and this was one of the books for the Asian Readathon in May. I'm going to link that one above as well. And this was a good 4-star book. This was a graphic novel that is about a prince who likes to dress in drag, and he loves dressing up in beautiful dresses and becoming Lady Crystalia at night. And so he asked the dressmaker Francis to be like his personal dressmaker, and this book was so cute. I really love the ending. It's one of those very memorable graphic novels that was just such a good time and so heartwarming and so sweet. Like, I just can't help but recommend it to anybody, so go check that one out. Next, I read the Saga series. Now, I'm not going to talk about each individual volume because I read 9 volumes for that reading vlog, and listen, I love this series. I fell into this, and I don't know how to get out of it. I did not realize I was going to love this much. I was just enthralled with the first 2 installments of this, and I will definitely be continuing on, but all I got from the library was volumes 1 through 9. There are, I think, officially 10 out at the moment. Number 11 is coming out later on this year, I believe in October. But this series is a like crazy fantasy space opera. It is so much fun. There are so many different kinds of characters, and we're usually following our main family who are on the run because they decided to breed their 2 species and create a child. And the child isn't supposed to like exist. It could ruin the time continuum. I don't know the whole even gist of it, but the fact is I love this series. It is so bizarre. It is so weird. It is so enthralling. And so many of the volumes just broke my heart. Like, I actually cried reading this, because they are that touching and that deep, because you follow some of these characters for how many volumes and then they're just taken out from under you. And if there's any graphic novel series you're thinking about starting, just try this, because I did not even know what to expect going into it. I just remember that it was a really popular one, so I picked up all the ones in the library and I was just absolutely hooked. This series is phenomenal. I love the artwork. I love the messages. I definitely have my favorites throughout for sure. And if you want to know more, definitely just go check out that reading vlog. Next I read Crazy Rich Asians, which was also for the Asian Readathon. Now, I gave this book 3 stars, and I have to say that I actually really enjoyed the movie a lot better. I think it takes the book and adapts it into something that's a lot more interesting. The book was very confusing because there are so many characters that are dumped in this that we don't get to attach a face to, and it just got too confusing confusing and overwhelming at parts. And then especially there's so much name dropping and stuff that I don't understand because obviously I'm not that wealthy. So it's kind of hard to keep things straight in here. I think it's also because the book does a lot of telling instead of showing, which is definitely not something that I enjoy. And especially in this type of instance, I really need to be shown how things are happening. And a lot of things happened off page and then were talked about and gossiped about. I don't really connect with that. So this book got 3 stars out of me. I would probably recommend a movie above all else. I also strongly feel like this should be a series. That's just me being a bitch. But I don't think I enjoyed it enough to actually continue on with the series because I really didn't like how it ended with like a prison storyline, all these other things I just don't really think like were necessary. Anyway, next up I read Paper Girls. There's also a reading vlog out for this series where I did end up getting to read all of the volumes. So I read volumes 1 through 6, and I have to say that this was probably my least favorite graphic novel series I've read the entire series of. I thought I was going to love this series. It takes place in the 80s. We're following this gaggle of girls as they are paper girls and they get sucked into like a time continuum. And what an idea, because those are all things that I love. I love the 80s, I love girl groups, I love feminism, I love girl power, I love time travel, I like science fiction shit. I love the art style of this, but this just did not work for me. I just couldn't ultimately find it in my heart to care for these characters. I didn't understand so much of the story because nothing was freaking explained. And then the last graphic novel just kind of made a lot of it like it's a dream trope, which just really bothered me. So a lot of this just didn't make sense. And ultimately this was very disappointing. But like, am I glad I read them? Of course, because otherwise I would have never known. But I just wish this was done differently. I wish we got more answers along the way that made it more enticing. I wish it was a more satisfying ending. And I think I'm ultimately really disappointed because obviously I love all those themes. And so I'm not sure why I didn't like it as much. And then on top of that, this is by the same writer that does the Saga series, which I ultimately love. Like, it just is very frustrating because I want to love this so bad and I just didn't. Next up, I read Moonstruck Volume 1. This was just an off chance graphic novel. I actually ended up getting volumes 1 through 3 from the library and just returned volume 2 and 3. I gave this 2 stars. I really didn't enjoy this. This is a really cute, adorable pastel graphic novel, and we're focusing on a fantasy world with a couple of different species, and it's supposed to be like a cozy, heartwarming type of graphic novel, but ultimately the story just did not make any sense. I was very lost in what was happening. I didn't understand the emotional motivations or the character motivations. Like, nothing made sense along the way, and it wasn't like supposed to be like this crazy time travel sort of thing, right? It just like, what was the purpose of some of this? Why are we on this storyline? Why is this weird magician here? I mean, the plot was just super messy, and I wasn't sure like why I should care other than like the main magic issue that comes up. I also didn't understand like the werewolf shaming. I feel like there was just a lot of things in here that just did not work for me. And unfortunately, I just don't really care enough about this to see this ironed out in the future installments, which is why I just returned volumes 2 and 3 to the library. I mean, I was just a little bored. Like, I was bored, I was confused, I wasn't connected. I did love the art style though, so points for that. Next, I read Tokyo Ever After, which is again also for the Asian Readathon. I gave this book 3 stars. This is a young adult novel that is pitched as Crazy Rich Asians meets The Princess Diaries, and I would definitely agree with that. However, this book again had the same issue of a lot of telling and not showing. Like, all the big action stuff would happen off page and then they would have like a small discussion about it, and that just doesn't work for me. I also just didn't really care for these characters. Izumi finds out that she is a Japanese princess, and then her father invites her to go to Japan, and I just feel like a lot of this was very far-fetched. I just couldn't suspend my disbelief here that like her mother just like let her go after not talking to this guy for like 20 years or whatever, and like she's on this plane and she doesn't even like crack the dossier about her new family and like the royal family line. She doesn't like care to understand any of it, even though all she's ever wanted her entire life is to know her father. There was a lot of like character motivations that just didn't add up. This wasn't making sense. This wasn't connecting. Like, her motivation should have just been very different. Like, I understand she's an annoying teenager, but if you're on that long of a flight and you don't look at the fucking folder with your entire family's information, like, that's just weird to me. If you really want to know who your father is, like, why wouldn't you read about him and his family, right? And then of course it's kind of like a Queen and Joseph situation from like the Princess Diaries, where her and her security guard have kind of a little bit of a thing together. And I really liked that, but I never felt their chemistry. It didn't really make sense. I didn't even feel it as like an enemies to lovers thing. I didn't really feel the tension between them. And the instant love was just very strong. I mean, this was a good 3 stars. It just really wasn't anything that's super memorable. Next, I read Punk 57, which is also in my indie romance reading vlog. And I really enjoyed this book. This is my first Penelope Douglas book, and I'm definitely gonna read more from her in the future. I really enjoyed reading this. This is a bully romance between Ryan and Misha. They were accidentally paired up as pen pals when they were younger, and ever since then they've had this pen pal relationship. Some tragedy strikes, and Misha ends up going to Ryan's school, but Ryan doesn't know that that's Misha. And they have a very steamy, erotic bully romance. There definitely is some bullying in here. I would let you know that you definitely should check out the trigger warnings and see if that's okay for you. I actually didn't mind that he had bullied her at this point. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know I was going to enjoy that. It actually worked for this instance, and I think a lot of it's because it's kind of like new adult, young adult. Like, they're not like grown ass people. They're very young. Their brains are undeveloped. I think I can like allow a little bit of leeway here, but also like he was just trying to kind of bully her and embarrass her because she was pretending to be somebody else at school. Like, she was just being a different person than she really was just to fit in. I'm not saying that's acceptable. I'm not. It was a romance. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. It was something I didn't know I was gonna like, and I definitely pick up a bully romance in the future. Like, I'm not X-naying that as an option. Next, I read the short Second Life of Bree Tanner. This is a companion novel to the Twilight series. I actually gave this 4 stars. I really like this. We're following Bree Tanner as she's turned from a vampire and then used as a vampire in Riley's army against, well, Victoria's army against the Cullens. This is really fun. It was really short. I really liked it. 4 stars, honestly. Like, I think this is probably one of my highest rated books of the entire series, and it's the companion novel, but actually it worked really well and I really liked it. So if you like the Twilight series, I would just kind of give it a shot. I mean, it's a really quick audiobook if you want to listen to it, but I actually read it in person over like 2 days, so would recommend. Next, I read Gear Breakers, which was also my Asian readathon vlog, and I gave this book 2 stars. I'm very upset about this because this is a YA like sci-fi dystopian where we have a sapphic romance and these women are trying to take down this Godolian Empire. My problem lies in the fact that I confused these ladies throughout the entire book. I thought that was just an issue with the audiobook, so I stopped listening to the audiobook and I started reading it, and it made a lot more sense, right? But the minute like they got together and they were every scene together, I could not tell them apart. Their thoughts and everything were incredibly similar. They had very similar upbringings and stuff too. So like they think the same, they talk the same, like nothing really made them stand out other than I could tell them apart like how they would describe each other. But then I still have to remind myself like, oh, we're in so-and-so's chapter. They're talking to so-and-so. And that was definitely really frustrating for me because I just wanted to love this so much. Sona is turned into a pilot and she's one of the people who can like pilot these giant mecha robots that fight on behalf of the Godolian Empire. And she wanted to take it down from the inside. But basically she teams up with Eris, who is captured by the Empire, and they break out and they become gear breakers together. Eris is already a gear breaker, I might just say. So gear breaker is just somebody who breaks down these mecha robots and takes them down. Now, my other issue lies in the fact that I have no idea why they're trying to do this. We don't know why these robots are bad. We just know that they're bad. We know this Godolian Empire sucks. It's made out of 5 zeniths who get to choose what happens to people. And we don't really know how this empire came to be. We don't know the territory. We don't know what they're fighting against. We don't know why there's been wars. Sona's entire family was taken down by the Godolian Empire, who basically took out its own like coal transport. Why would you do that? Unfortunately, this book just does not make a lot of sense. And honestly, I would really continue on into the second and final novel just because I want to know what happens. I want to know why they're fighting so hard because I like the idea of this so much and I love the idea of a found family, even though I didn't connect with any of those characters. I cannot remember who they are at all. But like this was such a cool idea for me. I want to continue on. I want to see if there's going to be answered in the second novel, but I'm a little scared that it's going to be a lot like the first. So I don't know about that. Next up, I read Fake Dates and Mooncakes. And this is a YA queer rom-com that is literally the cutest thing ever. Like I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. This just came out in May. It came out like mid-May. It came out like May 16th or something. This is very, very new. If you get your hands on it, please do. I am obsessed with this cover. Like honestly, I would die for this cover. It is so freaking cute. This is basically like a gay, crazy rich Asians. Dylan grew up really poor and he's still reeling from the death of his mother, and he works at his aunt's takeout business. And one night he ends up delivering takeout to Theo's apartment. Now, Theo is a very rich silver spoon type of boy who has the world at his disposal, but doesn't have the greatest family dynamics. Surprise. Now, Theo ends up gifting Dylan's family like $5,000 to basically not get evicted. But in order for like Dylan's family not to find out what happened, they pretend it's like a grant from a trust or whatever. So to make up for that, Theo asks Dylan to be his date for like this very famous wedding. Now, Dylan did not realize how famous Theo's family was, how rich they were, and of course he's thrown into this world. Along the way, there's also this other subplot where Dylan is trying to make the perfect moon cakes to celebrate like his family and win this contest. And winning the contest could also put them on the map as like a good takeout spot because his aunt actually wants to open up a full restaurant. I would wholeheartedly advise that you eat before you read this because I was so hungry reading this. There's so many amazing recipes, and obviously they're talking about making these like amazing snow moon cakes and the fillings. Having this as a subplot throughout this entire thing was just so cute, on top of like obviously the dating trope and seeing them kind of fall for each other. Even though basically it was insta love, but they don't act on their feelings too much later. So like I can allow it. The one thing I really didn't love about this was I didn't really support them as a couple. I really liked them as friends, but I feel like for me to see people as a couple or have that kind of chemistry, it just takes a different style of writing or something. I just didn't feel them as a couple. I found them as like really good friends. And I understand obviously that they're like supposed to be a couple. Like I get that. But like I just never really felt the couple vibe from them. I didn't really feel the romance vibe. I felt more like just a really good friend that you thought you wanted to screw with, and then you're like, like I should like use a friend. Like I feel like it was more of that vibe. I'm not sure what that vibe is, but that's what the vibe was. For this stunning cover, the mooncakes and the queer rep, I mean, please just go check this out. This was so freaking cute. And it's not a very long book. It's only like 270 pages. I actually listened to the audiobook and it was really fast. It was really sweet. I mean, this is one of the ones I would just say just give it a chance just because I'm just so in love with like this idea and the cover. I'm a bitch for a good ass cover. Next, I read Extraordinary by V.E. Schwab. This was a graphic novel representation of the Villain series, which I did not realize it was going to recount so much of the Villain's books, like Vicious. I didn't know that it was going to do that. I thought this was going to be an entirely new like graphic novel talking about something else in that universe, but it really summed up a lot of Vicious, and I was just expecting a lot more out of this, so I gave this 2 stars. I think this could be definitely skipped. It was not really a good companion graphic novel to the series. It didn't really add much, even though our main character has like a really cool power. So she almost dies and she can now see people's deaths and reflections, which is such a really cool and cursed gift. Like it's really interesting for an Extraordinary, but it wasn't enough to carry the story, and so much of it was just rehashing Vicious, so I just really wasn't interested. Kind of disappointed. Next up, I read Lore Olympus, and this is a very famous graphic novel, and I was definitely a little disappointed in this. I only gave this 3 stars. I can see the hype for this. I really love Persephone and Hades' relationship in this, but the rest of it just falls flat. I don't really care for the supporting characters. I'm not really sure if that's because I don't understand a whole lot of Greek mythology. I'm not very well versed in it, but I didn't really care about some of the storylines, and then it felt really disjointed, and I really want to see more from Hades and Persephone. Like those parts individually were so cute, but then when they weren't together, I just kind of didn't care. I didn't care about these weird off the plot love stories and stuff from other characters. I just feel like the flow of this didn't really work for me, even though the art style is gorgeous and it is so cute. I love the idea behind it. Like I definitely would continue on, but the dialogue of this was also very like stunted. You know, I want to know more. I want to get in these characters' heads, and I feel like I don't really know anybody other than maybe Hades or Persephone. Those are like the 2 characters obviously like I remember. They make a lot of sense. I'm rooting for them, especially like the ending is so cute. But I feel like for how long especially that this was, like this is a really thick ass graphic novel, we don't really get a whole lot of plot and storyline. So would I skip it? No, but like just go into it lowering your expectations a little bit, because everybody talked about how amazing this was, and it is literally so cute and the art style is gorgeous, but it just wasn't the plot I was looking for. Next, I read How to Be Ace, which is a memoir, and it is told in a graphic novel style. This was a really touching memoir that touched on asexuality as well as like OCD and anxiety, and I felt really seen in it myself, and I think it was just really nice to see how the author described parts of their life. My biggest frustration with this was like some of it wasn't linear, so I definitely got a little bit confused, but I think this is really great for anybody who wants to learn more about the spectrum, or if they're questioning their own experiences, or just to understand other people. But this was such a cute, well-told memoir. I really recommend it. Obviously, the graphic novel is super easy to read, and it was just so cute, so go read it. Next, I read Vanessa Yu's Magical Paris Tea Shop, and this was also for the Asian Readathon. This was my lowest rated of that reading vlog. I rounded this up to 2 stars. I really had a lot of problems with this book. This cover and everything makes it seem like Vanessa owns this magical tea shop. I was thinking something along the lines of Under the Whispering Door, and it just was not that. Like she literally goes to Paris to learn more about her own just psychic gifts of predictions with her aunt who happens to own a tea shop, which is fine. I just feel like definitely it was very misleading, and this book had so many descriptions of everything that I just couldn't care. Like if you have an entire paragraph of description, I'm not going to connect to the story. So I had a really hard time with this book. Reading it was definitely a little bit of a slog, even though I loved the setting and the characters were really cute. I just couldn't really connect whenever you're describing a meal for an entire paragraph. It felt like I was reading a Paris food blog, and I just don't want to feel like that when I'm reading a novel. If you want to find out more about that, please just go check out my Goodreads review because I definitely detail all my issues with it because there were so many. But yeah, I was a little frustrated with this one. Next, I've read Fence Volume 1 through 4. I only had those at my library. I know there's a lot more in this series, but overall, I liked all the books that I read for this. I gave the majority of these 4 stars. I would definitely go check out that reading vlog. It was really cute. It was very sweet. It was very fast. I really liked this, and I'm not usually into like graphic novels with like sports and stuff, but I actually like the fencing. I think it's really interesting. I do think the first 3 volumes could have been condensed into 1 volume because they all dealt with the same competition. So it's definitely a little bit frustrating to have to go to the second volume to figure out how one competition worked out. But other than that, really like them, love the relationships that we're seeing here, and it's definitely a slow burn for some of those romances. So I'm excited to carry on, I definitely will. And these novels were super cute. Last but not least, I read Lunar Love. So I had this book on ARC, and listen, the problem is I actually forgot that I even read this book because unfortunately, this book is a little unmemorable to me. It's kind of forgettable, even though this cover is also fucking stunning. Like, I'm obsessed with this cover. I love the art style, the colors, the font, everything about this just works for me. Again, I am an absolute sucker for a good ass cover, and I think that's my problem. I'm also a little disappointed because I was really expecting to absolutely fucking love this. This is a story about matchmaking. So it's about Chinese matchmaking, and our main character, Liv, so she has her own like traditional Chinese matchmaking service where they like actually match people up and make them go on dates, and everything is done from their astrological sign, which is really cool, right? And then of course her rival has a Chinese zodiac app, so it's kind of making her business superfluous. But there's a lot of things about this book that just didn't work for me. One of those was the fact that like they both knew who they were but pretended they didn't for such a long time, and Liv is trying to like ruin his business, and that's just a little bit frustrating because Bennett doesn't really deserve that. Bennett as a person, just he's very genuine and sweet, and he doesn't really like do anything that I feel like deserves her hatred. She's just like trying to take him down to save her own business instead of just trying to like make her business better. I don't know, it was just a little bit frustrating for her as a character. Like, she was honestly one of the worst characters I think I've read like all year. Like, I just really did not like her. I could not connect to her at all. She was so stubborn and annoying, and she's kind of treated Bennett like hot garbage. So I just really couldn't root for their romance. I really didn't care for their romance. I gave this 2.5 stars, but a part of me wants to lower it even more, even though I technically gave it 2 stars. Like, the fact that I literally forgot about this book until I had to make this video tells me something. Like, it's just kind of a shame because it has such a cool idea of this like matchmaking thing and them trying to hook each other up with different dates to see who's gonna like fall in love the fastest, and that's the person that wins like this bet. I mean, it had such a great idea. It just didn't go where I wanted to. And I think a part of that is Ben and Olivia have absolutely no chemistry. They have no chemistry. Also, matchmaking and app data really is not that titillating to read about. I thought I was going to enjoy more of that, but sometimes it's felt like reading like a manual on like how to do like SEO, and it was just really annoying. I regularly would like zone out and I have to like go back and reread stuff. Like, it just happened a lot to the point where like I forgot like whole chapters, and I'd have to go back and be like, oh my god, like I don't remember that happening because I literally just zoned out while I was reading. I will say that this has great representation and it has gorgeous recipes at the back, and this is so sweet. I wish I loved this more. I just don't think the writing style really connected for me, and I also didn't love any of these characters. So will I give this author another shot? Like, absolutely. I'm really sad that I didn't love this one. My ring light is literally dying as I speak, so I'm gonna let you guys go. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know if you read any of these down below and what you thought of them, and I will talk to you guys next time.